So we've just had the final race of the season of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. What a brilliant race we've had. A race of attrition, mixed strategy, and some great results in that race. Some surprises as well, to be honest with you. But let's go right to the beginning and the start on that one. Lewis Hamilton got a great start past Carlos Sainz at the start line. Good starts from Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez as well, kept position. Charles Leclerc right behind. Perez got a little run on him, but didn't quite get the pass on him on that one. And then Lewis Hamilton got past Carlos Sainz, which was the key battle actually at the start of the race. Carlos Sainz then got a run on Lewis Hamilton down into the second DRS point, but there's no DRS obviously, and then made a pass on the inside. But that ran Lewis Hamilton wide, and he had to go over a sausage curb, which sort of flung him in the air. Lewis Hamilton then sort of took to the escape route, carried on, stayed ahead of Carlos Sainz at that point, and then we had an investigation for Carlos Sainz for running another driver off the track. That got cleared, and then Lewis Hamilton got instructed to let Carlos Sainz pass, which is a bit of a shame because Hamilton looked quite strong at that point, right up the back of pushing Charles Leclerc, getting close to his DRS. So that meant he had then two Ferraris to pass, and so it was two Ferraris and then Lewis Hamilton, two Red Bulls, two Ferraris, and then Lewis Hamilton. George Russell got quite a poor start. He got passed by Carlos Sainz, dropped a place there. Lando Norris, and that cost him a little bit in the early starts of the race. And then we found Daniel Ricciardo also had a poor start. He dropped a place. Bottas had quite the worst of the starts actually. He was down in P20 last from where he started. Mick Schumacher also down to 16th, and Kevin Magnussen down to 18th. So poor starts from a few drivers there. And then obviously Lewis Hamilton had given the place back to Carlos Sainz. He then sort of got right up to the back of him and got an early pass, and it was a great manoeuvre on Carlos Sainz down the DRS zone, on the second DRS position, which meant that he'd keep that place, and off he went. Wise to not do it at the early first DRS zone, as we've seen a number of drivers do, because after the chicane you've got the second DRS detection straight after, which means that the driver will just get straight back after you and past you, and that's it for the rest of the lap. So good choice to take that, because only some drivers only learn that, like Sergio Perez did later on in the race on that one there. Russell then got past Lando Norris, and then was right up behind Carlos Sainz at that point. But then about lap 8, Lewis Hamilton got on the radio saying they was losing some power, which was, he didn't seem to just pull away from Carlos Sainz, which was interesting because it seemed like after that pass he'd be long gone and right back up to Charles Leclerc, but it didn't quite happen. But Sainz then on lap 8 made a pass on Lewis Hamilton, which was a great move from him. Vettel was in a good battle with Ocon at the time. He got past and then repassed. So it was a good little battle going on for Sebastian Vettel, who started well up there in 9th place. So some good racing there. And then on lap 9 we see George Russell pass Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was really struggling at this point in the race. Wasn't sure if it was something to do with his big sort of, not crash, but the landing that he got slammed down quite hard following him going over the sausage curb when he got run out by Carlos Sainz. But it was a strange afternoon for Lewis Hamilton. So dropped back quite a bit. Quickly dropped out the DRS behind Russell, and then it looked like he'd be in trouble, but they managed to keep that going for quite a bit longer. And then we got Vettel and Perez on about lap 16. Perez came out into the pits. Came out at that time on the harder tyres. Everyone was sort of starting on the mediums, apart from Gasly, who was on the softs, as with Magnussen and Bottas, who were both on the hards. Everyone else was on the mediums. Perez came in at lap 16. It was a bit early actually, but at that time you'd seen Charles Leclerc really closing up on Sergio Perez. just before he made his first stop, the Ferrari's holding on really well at that stage on the race. Leclerc coming back at Sergio Perez, about a second behind him before Perez pitted, so clearly coming under pressure. So that was the interesting point. Obviously the battle of the championship, them two tied on the same points for second place. So that was a battle left to be had. Obviously we heard Perez, the issue with Brazil, really eager to get this second place, but that split the strategies then. Perez in early, but then he came out and got stuck behind Sebastian Vettel, got past him initially, but then ran wide, which he did a couple of times in the race actually, down into the chicane after the first DRS zone, which let Vettel get a good slipstream into the second DRS detection zone and made the move past. It was great to see Vettel in that battle. He was really going for everything in the race. But then Charles Leclerc stayed out longer, and that was his strategy. At the same time, George Russell pitted in about around the same time. He came and then got a 5-second penalty for an unsafe relief, so it was a bit of a scruffy race from Mercedes there. He pitted, Norris and Zhu pitted all at the same time as well as George Russell around that lap 16 point. And then lap 18, Carlos Sainz went into the pits for his stop. Vettel went for a one-stop strategy, which he started to lose places. Then he came out on lap 26. Strange strategy from him. I think that cost him. He managed to fight back and get some good points, or a point in his final race, but he was in the wars throughout. And the shame for Fernando Alonso on lap 28, he retired from the race. Real shame for him, to be honest with you. He's had reliability issues all season. This is the 4th race he's now retired from, and he was in the points again, looking for some strong finish. Much needed for Alpine, to be honest, in their battle with McLaren and the constructors on that one. But that's how it went for Alonso. Unfortunately, another retirement, and for sure he'll be happy to leave that race. He's going to Aston Martin next season. Perez then pitted on lap 34 with Charles Leclerc really hunting him down. Perez was about 6-7 seconds ahead of Leclerc at one point, but Leclerc on these new hard times, it's really suited the Ferrari. Really made a charge on Perez, and which was quite surprising actually, because everyone was expecting Ferrari in race pace to sort of fall back, but it was Mercedes who you normally expect in race conditions to do really well, but they just were nowhere. Mercedes really, after that early promise with Hamilton getting past Sainz, and I thought it would be a great battle with the Ferraris. But it was great to see Ferrari back in it, in the hunt. Good battle with Sergio Perez at that time. But Perez pitted for his second stop. Leclerc stayed out because obviously he did a longer run at that point. Did Charles Leclerc, and that was the interesting point of the race there. Red Bull went for the 2-stop. Ferrari hung it out, and that was it, one-stop strategy. And that was the battle, and we'd see how that would work out. And it was right down to the last lap that came down. On lap 39, we got Mick Schumacher. He hit Nicholas Latifi, a 5-second penalty for Mick Schumacher. It was a really clumsy move, come from way back, and just seemed to clip the rear of Latifi, sent them both out. Luckily, both were able to continue, because that could potentially have been the safety car that Ferrari's strategy could have worked brilliantly on. Would have been a cheap pit stop for Leclerc, and he could have come out well ahead of Perez at that time. Wasn't to be, but we got the battle that we wanted right at the end. And who would win it between Perez and Leclerc? It was really, really tight at one point. Perez then passed Hamilton for 3rd position on lap 47. It was a good little battle with the Mercedes and the Red Bull. Perez did the same of what he did earlier on. He got the past Hamilton down into the chicane for the DRS zone. It looked like sort of an easy move on Hamilton, but Perez again ran deep, which allowed Hamilton to get a good run out of the chicane and into the DRS zone, and Hamilton repassed. A lap later, Perez finally made that move, and then we got to about lap 55, and it was Perez hunting down Leclerc and Carlos Sainz hunting down Lewis Hamilton. But we were getting into the closing stages, and we got a bit of a rob, to be honest, of the battle with Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. I think once Sainz got there, because they've got good straight line speeds, they went for the straight line speed in this race with less drag, which is probably what they could have done a number of times this season, but they didn't, surprisingly. But Lewis Hamilton had an issue with the shifts. Hydraulic issue meant he retired, his first retirement of the season. It just summed up Mercedes' season this season. It was a scruffy lap, scruffy performance from it was a slow pit stop on Russell, which cost him about 3-4 seconds, an unsafe release which cost him 5 seconds. It's just a bit scruffy all round, and then retirement for Hamilton. Not a great weekend for Mercedes in their fight for second with Ferrari, and Ferrari were back on it, which was good to see, and hopefully they can continue this momentum into next season. And that was that. And then we seen in the closing stages, Sergio Perez, he got to in about 1.8 seconds of Charles Leclerc at the last lap, or the second to last lap, and he just couldn't get into the DRS zone. Had he got there, I think he would have got the move done, but just good pace from Charles Leclerc. They held on their tyres, did on that one-stop strategy, which was surprising for Ferrari, because they've normally been hard on their tyres on race weekends. So a tough race, and it was Max Verstappen out in the lead. He'd looked comfortable for the win all from the start, led start to finish pretty much. He was well out, class of the field, to be honest with you. Charles Leclerc got the second position in the title, which was a brilliant result for him in the end. It was seasons of what could have been for Ferrari. I think they've had the fastest car up points this season. Charles Leclerc was leading the title at one point in the season, and probably should have been better. I think when that directive came in about the bouncing and porpoising issue, that sort of affected Ferrari more than it did Red Bull, and that's when we see Ferrari drop off this battle with Red Bull, and Mercedes coming back into it with a battle, but hopefully they'll fix all their issues and we'll have a three-way battle for next season. Carlos Sainz finished in 4th place, so it was Perez, Verstappen first, Leclerc second. Sergio Perez got 3rd place, couldn't get the move on Leclerc for that second in the championship, which would have been a great result for Red Bull, to be honest. For what a season that would have been, absolute domination. But yeah, it's a 1-3 in the Drivers' Championship for Red Bull, and winning the Constructors, all around fantastic. I mean, they got 17 wins this season out of 22 races, absolutely brilliant. 15 for Verstappen, a new record, and 2 for Perez. And I know, yes, there's more races to win this season, but the domination from them has been absolutely outstanding this season. But watch out for my season review probably next week, and we'll go through in a bit more detail on that one. Carlos Sainz for P4, George Russell P5, Lando Norris got his P6, so moved up position from his P7 that he's been getting regularly, so good points for McLaren there. Ocon got P7, Stroll in P8, good result from him. Danny Ricciardo in P9, so finally in the points from his last race for McLaren. That's him done for a little while this season, or next season at least. Let's hope he can find a drive for 2024. It'll be interesting to see how, if he does get the itchy feet, and how quickly he might find a way up into a front-running team following his year out. Sebastian Vettel on his last race in Formula 1 got a P10. He had a brilliant race. It's a shame his strategy didn't quite work out for him, but I got a point on his final run for Aston Martin, which was a good result for them, really. Yuki Tsunoda finished in P11. So race for him, but better, decent position just outside the points. It's a shame for him. Zhou Guangzhou in P12, a good run. Alex Albon, brilliant race for him in Williams, finishing P13. I mean, Williams we've seen all running at the back throughout the season. He got a brilliant start, made up quite a lot of places, about 4 places on the start line, and then kept that up, and a good strong finish for him. Pierre Gasly finished in 14th for his last race. He's moving to Alpine next season, so strongish finish for AlphaTauri there. Bottas, poor race weekend for him, and finished 15th and last. Didn't really make too much impression in the race, really, so he'll be disappointed with that one. Mick Schumacher finished P16, beating his teammate, more experienced teammate Kevin Magnussen. Schumacher out of Formula 1 for next season. Let's hope he can find a decent reserve driver seat and fight his way back into Formula 1. Nico Hülkenberg taking his seat at Haas next season. Be an experienced driver lineup at Haas next season, so let's see how they got on. Strange they've gone from the really young drivers they had with Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher to two experienced heads with Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. It'll be interesting to see how that driving pairing gets on. With the DNF, Lewis Hamilton finished in P18, Latifi in P19, and Alonso the DNF P20. In the Construction Championship, it then finished, in the Drivers' Championship, Verstappen is the champion this season. Charles Leclerc in second. Tops off what should have been for a season, but a good progress for Ferrari this season, fighting up for wins again, back at the front, and hopefully they can continue that next season and we have a tighter battle up at the front. Sergio Perez in third, George Russell got fourth place in the championship, Carlos Sainz fifth, and Hamilton dropped down to sixth. He was about 5 points off Carlos Sainz in the end. I think that DNF paid for him there. In the Construction Championship, Red Bull miles out in front. A good weekend for Ferrari meant they kept their second place despite the flat back from Mercedes on there. Alpine kept fourth place in their battle with McLaren. Despite a poor weekend, McLaren still didn't have enough points to overhaul them. They finished in fifth, McLaren. Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin finished on the safe points, 6th and 7th, so it's a shame Vettel couldn't just get that pass on Daniel Ricciardo for 9th. Right at the end, they were really close in this race, and that would have meant that Aston Martin would have finished ahead of them, and would have been a nice sending off, a little extra special for Sebastian Vettel if he could pull that off, but wasn't to be. But finished on the same points. Haas beat AlphaTauri by 2 points, so a good finish from them, finishing 8th this season, and AlphaTauri 9th and Williams 10th. It's been a fantastic season. Red Bull have absolutely dominated it. It was good to see Mercedes get their first win in Brazil at the end of the season, so they've made up a lot of ground, and hopefully that can happen, and we have a good three-way fight. Ferrari pulling off a decent result in the final race of the season, so they're finally getting on top of their car again, just as the season coming to an end, which should lead us up to a brilliant race season next season. We'll go through a race review, so watch out for that coming soon. But all in all, it's been a brilliant championship, dominated by Max Verstappen, who's been absolutely class this season. I know he's had a very, very good car, but you can't say he's had the best car all season. It was a good fight from Ferrari early doors. It's a shame that didn't continue throughout the rest of the season with Ferrari dropping off. But yeah, it's a shame to see we won't see Sebastian Vettel on the field next season, or Daniel Ricciardo. Vettel going to retirement. Let's see how long that will happen, but it did look like that's it for him. Daniel Ricciardo obviously with his year out, let's see, hopefully he can find a way back into the field for 2024. But all in all, a good race weekend, some really good moves on the track, a good race. Shame for a poor weekend for Mercedes, but that's summed up their season, and hopefully we can get them all fighting back at the front next season. Thank you very much for watching. That's my review. Watch out for the season review coming soon. Please like, subscribe and comment. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.